We've all explored the depths of our modern age internet, and it is safe to say that there are some questionable websites and blog posts floating around on the shallow surface of its body. The concept of horror and its widespread and dedicated following feel the need to sink its teeth into anyone and everything that dares to venture deeper and close the distance between surface and a direct playing field. Countless of so-called true experiences are documented on a daily basis and left open and accessible for the majority to find. But just how true do any of these stories and documentations ring? Today, I'm going to explore the No Sleep forum on Reddit in search of something that might spark my and your attention. Hope you are comfortable and in a state of delirium, because we're about to explore the darkness once more. Number 1. Strange things are happening. I could use some major advice. Things are getting a little strange around here. I'm a long-time lurker, but never thought I would ever have anything to write about. Recently, however, things took a turn towards the strange, and I find myself completely out of my depth on how to handle it. Yesterday, we moved into a new house. My family is made up of myself, my twin brother Eric, and our parents. Eric and I don't look much alike, any more than a normal brother and sister look alike. We're also completely different from each other personality-wise. Eric has always been outgoing, the popular kid at school. I'm sort of the dork that likes to go see slam poetry and was thrilled when I got a job writing for the school paper. Dad's job let him go a few weeks ago, and this new job required us to move halfway across the country to a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, so small that the schools are all held in the same building, because there's just not enough kids to justify having actual separate schools. Our house is far off from any other buildings, a good 20-minute drive into town. I guess you could call it a cabin. It looks enough like one. Sort of looks like it came straight out of one of those fairy tale books. A pretty garden set to a backdrop of a forest that disappears off into the distance, with hills and mountains even further off. My bedroom is right next door to Eric's, on the upper level of the cabin, with our parents downstairs in the master bedroom. At first, I loved the cabin. It really did look like it came out of a fairy tale, and it was just the sort of place I could fall in love with and want to live in. But something is not right here. There's this smell that lingers in the air. It smells damp, rotten, but the moment I start to think that it smells, suddenly the smell is just gone, and I find myself thinking that I'm being stupid. The place is perfect. When I finally went to sleep last night, I had a horrible nightmare. I don't usually dream, so I feel like this is somehow connected to whatever is going on here. In the dream, I was walking through the forest. I thought it was the one behind my house, but I don't know how that could have been since I haven't even gone exploring the woods yet. There were lights between the trees, tiny pinpoints of light that seemed to bob and weave between the trees and the branches and every shadowy place around me. I kept walking, and as I did, I came aware of the voices. It was like 1,000 people, all whispering at once. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but the whispers just kept growing in volume until they were all screaming at me. It was only when they began screaming that I realized something. Those pinpoints of light, they were eyes. I woke up, covered in sweat, feeling like there was a tightness in my chest. We went shopping today, and there's people like us who moved here for jobs, and then there's the people who've lived here their whole lives. The ones who've been here a while, they seem scared. I mean, I saw a woman walking around with her baby daughter, and the stroller had old-fashioned forks hanging from it, right above the baby. That can't be safe. And there's no kids. I didn't see a single child besides the baby while we were out shopping. No parents with their kids, and the few people we did see, ones not here on contract, kept looking at my mom like she was crazy to walk around with me. I don't know what's wrong with this place, but I can't shake the feeling that something is just very wrong. The buildings all look perfect, but there's a smell in the air. The same smell from the cabin. Damp. Rotten. The food looks perfect, but it also smells strange. The apple I just ate. This is going to sound crazy. For a second, I could have sworn the apple was rotten, with worms crawling through it. I had only taken one bite of it when I saw, or thought, the worms. Mom was mad that I threw a perfectly good apple away, but I couldn't eat it after thinking about the worms. It's getting dark again, and I'm sitting in my room writing this. I can't see the forest through my window. It's probably my imagination, but I keep thinking I see lights in the forest. Pinpoints of light between the trees and the canopies of leaves. Every time I focus on the lights, they just wink out. I'm scared. Number 2. The kid at the workplace. I've been looking at stories here for a long time now, and I have the guts to post it. This story, however, is real. I apologize for the format, typing in mobile. A little backstory. I live in the Philippines. Our country is known for many spirits and creatures. This took place in a 3-story building, the first floor being the office of my dad, the second floor where my grandmother sleeps, and the third floor where my dad stores medicine. This happened on a Saturday. I was at the first floor playing games on my phone. Suddenly, my mom calls and tells me to go upstairs and hand the phone to my grandmother. Be aware that the 2 spirits are in this house, which is an old man and a woman, and my dad knows about them. They guard this house. This information will be important later. Going up to the 2nd floor, it was very dark, so I sprinted going up and gave my phone to my grandmother, who was currently taking a shower, and gave her my phone and sprinted back. Coming Monday was our physical education class. After flying kites as our project, we went back to the classroom. Going up, I noticed my right arm starts to ache. Not my bones, but my skin. I tried to wash off with water, and yet the aching still went on. It was about an hour, and our next subject was already starting when I felt an itch. I was wearing a jacket at the time, so I casually shrugged it off, how itchy it could be. Coming home, I realized that I scratched so hard that I had very big scratches on my arm. There was something weird about it. When I touched it, It felt warm, even when applying water. The next day, I tried to cure it with the nurses in our school. They just applied some kind of cream because they thought a hairy insect bit me and scratched it so hard it caused sad rashes. After about 3 days of assuming the insect, my mother told me, "Son, hasn't the rash of yours got removed?" "No," I replied. She then had a worried expression on her face and suddenly held both of my hands. There is actually a tradition in the Philippines that when one of your pinky fingers is longer than the other, a supernatural creature puts some kind of spell on you. That, indeed, happened, and she called my grandmother, whose name is Annie, and she's 60 years old. She went and started doing these rituals to me, and I remember them exactly. First, she broke a candle in half and drew crosses on my forehead, chest, palms, knees, and feet while chanting. Afterwards, she put that candle into a spoon and melted it with fire. She then put the melted wax into a basin with cold water and revealed that the candle was in the shape of a boy. She then told me what happened. "This happened during a Saturday night, right?" she asked. Shocked and confused, I nodded. "A ghost of a boy aged 12 followed you into the workplace. When you ran upstairs, he thought you could see him, and you were playing with him. When you were up, he spat on his hand and put it on your body, specifically your arm and some parts on your back. We have to go there now. But before that, take a shower with salt and make sure to get some biscuits." After following her instructions, we went there to the house. The old couple, the couple I mentioned before, were waiting for us there. They apologized to my father because they didn't get to me in time. As we were walking upstairs, I felt the spirit of the grandma and the couple touch my shoulder as a sign of strength. We went up, lit a candle, and I said this to the spirit. "Hey kid, sorry if I didn't see you. We're different. I bought you some food. Hope we still be friends." Afterwards, I saw my grandma grab the hand of the spirit. They ran so far away, I didn't see them. That was the last that I felt from him again. After 2 weeks of showering with salt, it disappeared and never came back. Every time I go to that place, I expect spirits, so I greet and say I don't see them. Back then, I never believed in these, but after what happened to me, may you be aware yourself. Number 3. There is an invisible door at the top of the old stairway in the forest. Long-time reader, first-time poster. I created a new account because my main account had some information that might reveal my location. I'm going to recollect all the details to the best of my ability, so maybe someone can help me figure out what is going on. So I apologize if I seem to include too much routine stuff. I just didn't want to leave anything out. I suppose I should start with a little background. I like to get some exercises in at least a few times a week. Hitting the gym does the job, but whenever the weather is nice, nothing beats taking a nice walk outdoors. Fortunately, there is a natural trail which goes around a small lake about 20 minutes from where I live. Sure, it's a bit of a drive, but the gorgeous sights, sounds, and smells make it worth it. There never is a lot of people on the trail. Sometimes nobody else at all. The main trail is a bit hilly, gravel trail carved in the forest, which I guess is about 3.5 kilometers long. It crossed a couple of bridges over some shallow streams that flow into the lake. Nothing too unusual about it. Well, besides the stone staircase. About halfway around the trail, there's a very old decomposing stone staircase off the side of the trail. The stairs, which are puckered with holes and covered with moss, lead nowhere. That is, they just go up and end. I've always found it really strange, but I've walked past them 100 times without giving them much of a second thought. I guess I just assumed there must have been a building there at one time, which was destroyed for some reason. But why would the stairs remain? Well, at least until yesterday. Wednesday was a pretty ordinary day. The weather was pretty fair, some clouds, but no rain, and it wasn't cold, which is pretty nice for May. I stared outside through the window and thought about how I haven't had the chance to talk or take a walk for quite some time. I knew that I wouldn't be free tomorrow, and so I decided that I'd hit the trail the next morning. Come Wednesday night, the sky roared to life with fierce rain, wind, hail, and thunder. It's not extremely unusual this time of year, but it surprised me nonetheless, since the weather forecast predicted clear skies. Not to mention, I didn't notice any thunderclouds earlier in that day. I just kept thinking about how I won't likely get a chance to go for a walk the next day, and was honestly a little disappointed. I ended up not sleeping that well that night due to the flashes of lightning outside the window as bright as the midday sun, followed by enormous, house-rattling cracks of thunder that sound as if they came directly overhead. I woke up Thursday morning and peered outside my bedroom window, and surprisingly, everything was calm. Obviously, the ground was wet and a few things were blown around. The sky was a little overcast, but hey, it wasn't raining. The plug and clogs were reset, so the power must have gone out during the night. No matter, I'll fix them later. I went through my morning routine relatively quickly because I wanted to go down to the lake before the weather changed its mind again. The power must have been out longer than I thought. By the time that I left the house at 10 a.m., my phone was only charged to 17%. No matter. Who needs gadgets when you have nature, right? The drive down to the lake was uneventful. I arrived in the parking lot around 10:30 a.m., and the weather seems to be holding up. There was not a single other car around. Sweet. I think I should be in for a peaceful walk. I set off the trail, head out, and find that the ground is kind of muddy from all the rain, but that's no big deal. I walked along as usual, taking in the sights, smells, and sounds of the environment. The must of the wet plants was strangely pleasing. It was a little bit windy, but not bad with a coat. But something was strange. I had an eerie feeling of something odd pretty early on, but it really became overwhelming about 20 minutes into my walk, when I started to hear an unfamiliar sound, a hissing sound, or perhaps it would be more accurate to call it a sizzling sound. Whatever the sound is sent chills down my spine. I've never heard anything like it on this trail. I stopped for a moment and considered what it might be. The wind? No, it's too constant. Rushing water? No, it's too strong for any stream around. Electrical arcing? But there are no power lines around. I turned my head left and right to attempt to figure out what direction this raspy sound is coming from. The sound seemingly reflects off of anything and everything, so it's hard to say, but it appears to be coming from roughly the direction from which the trail goes forth. At this point, I thought about turning back, but I've always been a curious person. I wanted to find the sound, because I figured it would be nothing, and ended up putting my mind at ease. I trudged on, slightly more cautiously than usual. Aware of every step, the sound grew louder and louder. I was just around the bend from the stairs, and the sound was unmistakable. It was loud. At this point, I was just about to walk past the old stone stairway. For some reason, I wasn't really looking at the stairs, and I was prepared to carry on down the trail. Then, something out of the ordinary caught my peripheral vision, and I stopped dead in my tracks. As I turned, what I saw is almost indescribable. What the ever-loving fuck? That was the only thought that crossed my mind at the instant. At the top of the stairs, there is a shimmering, semi-transparent, grid-like pattern suspended in the air. It is roughly rectangular, about the width of the stairs, and 2 to 3 meters tall, apparently tapering off and merging with the brush around the edges. It glowed and wavered like a curtain in the wind, and despite the grid-like appearance, the grid lines don't even seem to change size as I walk around it. It became clear that the ear-wrenching, bacon-frying sound was coming from that thing, whatever the hell it is. My body told me to run back as fast as I could. Yet despite that I was shaking in fear, I couldn't help my driven curiosity. I backed away about a dozen steps, pulled out my phone, opened the camera app, and hit record. I also noticed my phone battery is at 7% by now. Feeling the need to document this phenomenon, I walked towards and then up the stairs. That seems dangerous enough as it is, considering their state of decay. But the possibility of the stairs crumbling from under my feet isn't even on my mind, considering I'm facing whatever this thing is. I was probably just acting on pure adrenaline. I reached the top step, and I felt the inexplicable urge to do the unthinkable. Reach out towards this and try to touch it. I really cannot explain why I was driven to do this. It rippled and emitted flashes of golden light wherever my hand touched it. It stung my skin very much, like a mild electric shock. My fingers seemed to pass through it, but they wouldn't go very deep. There seems to be something hard, solid, and invisible not far behind it. It feels splintery, like wood. It's clearly much shallower than the distance the brush appears to be behind the stairs. Despite the pain, I kept my hand inside and felt around to try to find some sort of edge. And then I feel something towards the lower right. It feels like a doorknob. I grab onto what feels like a doorknob, turn it. It feels old and corroded. I try to push and it opens. The whole solid wood thing that I felt before seemed to be a door, an invisible door that just opened. Keep in mind, I still cannot see this apparent door. I can feel it and I can hear it, but I can still only see the bushes through whatever this thing is. I put my arm through it and it just disappears past the threshold, and I feel the sensation of cold on my hand. I pull my arm back through it, and it appears uninjured. I contemplate for a second and decide to go all in and walk through. Unfortunately, this part was not captured on video since the area where I felt the doorknob was off the right side of the frame. I was recording in my left hand while not at all paying attention to my phone's display. Anyway, I begin to step forward, slowly and cautiously, but constantly. I would normally expect to step right off the edge of the stairs and fall down. However, clearly that wasn't what happened. My foot felt some sort of solid ground the instant I passed through, and the moment my face transverses the threshold, there is a bright yellowish flash and sudden darkness. My body almost immediately feels much colder, kind of like stepping outside on a cold winter's day. Meanwhile, my nose is suddenly pounded with a strong odor of old wood, mold, and must. The air was turbulent yet stale. The sound of the outdoors became muffled and faded away as I stepped forward, away from the door. My eyes start to adjust, and I begin to be able to make out some outlines. It appears that I am inside an old, small wooden cabin. The bare wood boards creak loudly beneath my feet with every step. I can make out some shelves to the right, a fireplace toward the left of a straight, and a window straight ahead. Looking at the window down right gave me goosebumps. It was night black with a faint purple and orange glow. It was as dark as a starless night, despite that it was, supposedly, the middle of the day. The sun was shining bright just before going through that door. After just a few seconds of entering the cabin, my phone battery dropped to 5%, which caused it to automatically stop recording. Not that it did much good. The inside of the cabin was far too dark for the camera to pick anything useful up. One thing I did notice is that I had absolutely no cell signal. I usually get 3 to 4 bars of 4G service on this part of the trail. I walked about halfway across the room and started to panic. What if I get trapped in here? Where am I? What if there are people here? Question after question raced through my mind. The feelings were certainly exacerbated by the fact that my phone was nearly dead and without signal. I turned around, pulled open the door, which had partially closed itself, apparently from a draft. I stared outside the door for a moment, and the portal, or whatever you call it, looked very much the same on the other side, except it was clearly nighttime, and the forest and trail looked different. But it was honestly kind of hard to tell because it was so dark. I could just make out the outline of the staircase. My mind may have been playing tricks on me from fear and darkness, but I thought that the staircase looked to be better in condition. I didn't notice the holes and moss. I can't be totally sure, and I wasn't willing to stick around and examine it. I held my breath, hoping that I would end up back where I came from as I stepped through the portal. It feels like a jolt of electricity following through my body. If you've ever accidentally touched the AC mains, that's about how it felt for an instant. As soon as I passed through, I breathed a sigh of relief as I was standing at the top of the dilapidated old stairs, facing the trail of the daylight, with it scratching and fluttering behind me. At least everything seemed to be how it was before. I ran down the stairs and ran back through the trail back to my car as fast as I could. Luckily, that part was all uneventful. After spending a few minutes to catch my breath, I went back home and reflected on the situation. Obviously, I have a lot of questions. What was that thing? Where did it take me? Was it real? Should I go back? And if I do go back, will it even be there again? Just thinking about it makes me anxious, and I can't help but wonder what compelled me to touch it and walk through. Was it just my natural, strong curiosity? You know what they say, curiosity killed the cat. Or was it that this thing somehow affected my judgment? It makes me shudder to think about that possibility. Words can't describe the fear I felt as I walked through the threshold, and every sense showed me something that no known natural phenomenon could explain. The feeling of loss of control, the chills. How I write this may make sound like it was just an interesting adventure, and to a point it was interesting, but it is also very terrifying to experience in person. The video I recorded stands as a statement and testament of what happened yesterday. Even though it only captured a mere fraction of the experience, watching it again causes the memory to come rushing back and gives me goosebumps. I know a lot of people are probably interested in the video recording. If anyone has any idea what it might have been or whether I should go back, please let me know. I just now realized I never did close the door on my way out. And there you have it. These were some of the most recent experiences I could find on the forum. I ask you to color the comments section with experiences of your own, considering the topic discussed in today's video. I can't wait to dig and find some of the more interesting ones, and perhaps I might include yours in the next video regarding creepy and disturbing topics. Better start noting down the memories you've kept repressed for the last couple of years. And with that, I will leave you creatures of delirium to find solitude and inspiration in the dark. Good night, stay in delirium, and I will resurface sooner than you might think.